Welcome to Truckee Talks, and welcome back to our annual holiday show. It's hard for me to believe it's really that time of year again, but here we are. Yeah. We're here talking about all of the different things the Truckee community is doing this year for the holidays. And with us on the first part of the show is Joseph Ferreira from Tahoe Forest Hospital.
Hi, Maya. Thank you for having me.
Oh, Joseph, it's great to have you back on the show. Hard to believe that we've done 3 of these shows, and you're already here for your second. You're becoming a real senior here on the show. Joseph, Tahoe Forest is doing a lot of different activities this year. Tell us about some of those.
Yes, we are. Actually, we're doing a food drive, working with Program Manna. We have found that we have multiple people coming into our facility at any given time throughout the holiday season and looking for care, and hence they also have some other needs. So we hooked up with Program Manna to be able to provide them with some meals, some certificates, and some whole packages to go with them.
Now, Project Manna is specifically for food, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So if people wanted to drop off food contributions, could they do that at the Tahoe Forest Hospital?
Yes, actually we're having a little area in our dietary conference room that will be storing food, because we'll also be doing the food drive among all of the employees.
And what kind of food should people bring up? What's appropriate?
Anything, I think, that's not perishable. When we look at canned foods, carbohydrates, types of pastas, potatoes, things of that type.
And basically non-perishable, so you're looking
Yes.
for canned foods, boxed foods,
Right.
that kind of thing, things
Right.
that are somewhat easy to make food out of. Okay, now, holiday dinner for moms. What is that about?
Well, the comprehensive perinatal program run by Cindy Ames. We have a number of families up here, a number of mothers that are participating in it, trying to do whatever they can to be good mothers, learn more about things that they need to be involved with as far as with their newly born child or even some of their infants. So we decided, these are some mothers that are really making a difference. We want to help provide them with some food and some opportunities, some gifts for this Christmas to reward them for their efforts.
So is that a drive among employees, or again, are you soliciting from outside in the community?
Actually, that's a gift from us from the hospital to say thank you for their contribution to their own family.
Joseph, that's a nice touch. That's really nice to hear. Now, are those classes that go on throughout the year for these mothers?
They are. The programs, actually it's a weekly program, and parents can come in and drop in and meet Cindy, gain some more information from Cindy, and get really enrolled into the program.
Now, we're going to roll this name later on during the break, but we should mention again, Cindy Ames is sort of orchestrating all of this for Tahoe Forest Hospital, and you can reach her at the hospital at 587-6011.
Yes.
But again, we'll show that on our screen later on in just a few minutes. Now, Joseph, you mentioned earlier before the show that Tahoe Forest is also doing something internally for its own employees. I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, it's interesting with all the things going on. We have an annual giving program for the hospital, an employee giving program, and yet every year employees want to step up and help their own. I think every organization has people in need. Things happen throughout the year that create the situation that a family can't have a great Christmas, and I think our employees have always acknowledged that, and they actually have put together a program year after year to employees can give to it through their paychecks, give gifts, toys, clothes, things of that manner, and it's totally confidential. And I kind of reach out to the community to look within their own organizations and see if they can do the same type of thing, because I know the mileage we get from a team building, and I tell you, to watch all the employees step up for that, it's really great, because there are people in need, and you might not really ever acknowledge that they might be the ones. So keeping it confidential and making it easy to access, I think it's a great opportunity for everybody.
Really helps keep pride, too. I know this time of year can be really hard for everybody, working class, people that can't afford Christmas at all in the poorer ranks of our community. But the people right there in the middle who are working, just kind of living hand to mouth from paycheck to paycheck, this time of year can be even more burdensome. And there's a lot of pressure to provide gifts for family, for friends, a lot of pressure to put on the big meals. And that's a stretch for a lot of people's pocketbook, even if you are working day to day. So that's a nice thing to do. And Joseph and I both joined together in encouraging companies throughout the community in sharing with one another and really making it a season of sharing. You know, before we came on the show too, Joseph, you were talking about Hurricane Mitch, and I'd be curious to hear a little more about what's going on with that.
Yeah, you know, within the last month, we have had started out to be, let's put a box in our dietary conference room right next to the cafeteria register box. And I tell you, it went from people reaching out and talking with other people. Next thing we knew, we created a storage unit out of one of the garages, and we thought, oh great, you know, we'll let them know and come up and we'll provide a little bit into a truckload. Well, we had the high school involved, Truckee Elementary, Glenshire. It was just incredible. We had the entire garage full. In fact, when the truck came up to pick up the stuff, you know, we had medical supplies donated from physicians, clothes, gifts, all kinds of things donated from families from all over the area. And little did we know, now they have to bring up a second truck to get the rest of the stuff. It's been great, but it was a community-wide effort. Rotaries were involved, all the different organizations really stepped up.
You know, that's one of the things that makes living in this community so wonderful, and I know that we've heard it before on this program, but it bears repeating. It really does make our place a special place to live because everybody does pitch in.
Yeah.
And this time of year when things can get so stretched, or when other communities are so stretched, such as those communities that were hit so hard by that hurricane, what devastation that wreaked.
It's unbelievable.
And how nice that we can all pitch in and feel like we're doing something to help out with that.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
It is good.
That's a great thing. Well, Joseph, you've got a lot going on. Again, if you want to make contributions of food, non-perishable items, those can be left with Tahoe Forest Hospital.
Yes.
You can also contact Project Mana directly. They have a telephone number, and they can be reached for making food contributions as well. So that's two places that you can contact for the food drive. And then the holiday dinner for moms. If there are moms out there that are interested in knowing more about this program, should they contact Cindy as well?
Yeah, please contact Cindy. She's really running the program, and she's more than delighted to meet new mothers interested in the program.
Okay, so that's Cindy Ames, again, at Tahoe Forest Hospital, and that's 587-6011. And finally, the program that Tahoe Forest is kind of pioneering here as far as caring for employees could be a model for a lot of different organizations throughout our community. So let's all try to pitch in, help one another out this season. Joseph, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Maya, again for having me.
Absolutely. I'm sure I'll see you before next year, but I'm looking forward to that show as well.
Take care.
Just a few reminders of things also coming up in our community before we go into our second half. The Tahoe City Rotary is hosting Santa Claus, and you can contact a member of Tahoe City Rotary to find out where and when that's happening. The Truckee Sunrise Rotary Club, all year long they have an organization called the Angel Network, and the Angel Network provides furniture for people in need. If you have furniture that you would like to donate, or if you're in need of a piece of furniture, please contact a member of the Truckee Sunrise Club. And finally, watch your screen as we take a short break now. We'll be back in just a minute with more on Truckee's community spirit. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about all of the different events that are going on through the holiday season and all of the different agencies that are helping to support families in need during this season. On this half of the show, we've got Patty Johnson. Patty, welcome.
Thank you, Maya.
It's great to have you back. Patty, you're with Sir Optimus International of Truckee Donner, but here today you're in a different capacity.
That's correct. I'm here representing Truckee Community Christmas.
Now tell me what Truckee Community Christmas is all about.
We're an umbrella organization, and we try to coordinate the efforts of all the different volunteer communities or organizations within the community, just to make sure that there's not duplication of efforts, as well as duplication of to whom our efforts go. So the idea is that we contact the different people who are doing different activities and try to just help us all work together.
Now, working with a volunteer organization can be a lot like herding cats, and if you're working for a volunteer organization that's managing volunteer organizations, that has to be a challenge.
It's challenging, but our community is really great at working together on all kinds of different projects, so this is just an extension of what we already do.
So who are some of the organizations that you're working with right now?
We work with Rotary, we work with the Tahoe Board of Realtors, we work with Seroptimus, and we work with 7-Eleven and the Salvation Army, and Safeway as well.
Okay, so there's a lot of different drives going on in town, and you're sort of overseeing some of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Patty, what, in terms of screening for families, people are interested in perhaps receiving this year. How would they go about doing that?
The way we do our screening process is the various entities hand out the application forms, and they screen the persons to whom they give the application forms in the first place. And then we have a committee that gets together and just makes sure that there's not a duplication so that we can reach the most number of, the greatest number of people possible. The agencies that have the applications would be social services, as well as the school counselors, and I'm forgetting one, but those types of entities are the places that would have the applications if someone is interested in obtaining an application and hasn't already done so.
Okay, so if they have a child in school, the child can contact school counselors.
Correct.
As well as social services.
Correct.
Okay. And then once you've done this screening, what can these families expect to see? What actually happens?
What happens? The Seroptimus does the toy drive, and we try to give 2 or 3. Depends on how many gifts we get, but we try to give 2 or 3 gifts that are age appropriate for the members of the family. So if you have 3 children of varying ages, there will be several gifts in there that are geared for that particular age. There also will be at least 1 food bag, depending on how the community is doing in terms of their donations. And that, we're looking for food that is not necessarily just holiday food, but food that they can use, staples and basics that they can use all year round. Some years we've had turkeys to give away as well. We've had, the resort at Squaw Creek has donated turkeys in the past. And we try to encourage entities that would like to do that to get the turkeys to us early, because people do come to pick up the gifts and the food baskets early in the day. So if we get the turkeys late, then we have a lot of turkeys left over. We then pass on to Project Manna and hope that they can get them out through their network as well.
Although I would think more difficult with perishable food.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Now, tell me what's new this year. You mentioned before we came on the show that you have a senior program happening.
Correct. Last year we did food baskets and some small gifts for seniors. This year Connie Lentz is organizing basically Adopt a Senior. And the idea being that you can do what we do for the adoptive families for a senior who may not have family here or may not have anyone here that they can necessarily go home with or have a meal provided or whatever. When you adopt the senior, the idea is that you contact them and determine what their needs are, whether they want to come to your house for dinner, whether you want to provide them a meal. A few small gifts are always appreciated. Seniors don't need the toys and these types of things, but they still do need something.
Yeah, that's a nice touch, Patty, because oftentimes those are the people that get ignored or forgotten during the holiday season.
That's correct. And our food barrel, our toy barrels, you can also donate gifts for seniors that are not adopted. So if anyone is interested in particularly donating something for a senior, put it in the food barrel. We can usually figure out what's intended for seniors. We recommend things like gloves, slippers, small shampoos, just personal items along those lines. Anything you can think of, we'd be happy to have.
Now, where can people find the toy barrels or the food barrels?
They should start going out after Thanksgiving, and they will be at the grocery stores and the banks and 7-Eleven and those types of organizations throughout the community.
That's great. Now, we should mention too, Patty, in this week's issue of the paper, which will be fairly dated by the time this program airs, you'll want to go back and look in the November 19th issue of the Sierra Sun. They list all of the different programs that are happening, all the different various service organizations and private companies that are actually putting together drives and placing barrels out.
Yes, we were very pleased to see that on the front page, and it's very comprehensive. I mean, if anyone, has faulty memory, they can go back and it's all right there.
That wouldn't be anybody we know, Patty.
No, not at all.
Well, and for those of you that do have faulty memories, I should remind you that at the end of this show, we'll be setting up on the screen telephone numbers and names of people for you to contact, so that if you are interested in finding out more information, or if you would like to donate your time or food or toys or warm coats, there will be places and people to do that with.
Correct.
Now, what's missing on some of the needed items? What are the things that there are holes?
Typically with the toys, we have the hardest time getting toys for teenagers. The kinds of things teenagers like tend to be a bit more expensive, so they're harder for people to donate, and we recognize that. That's why we seek monetary donations as well, in order to fill in the holes with the food, food that we don't necessarily get, or toys in areas that we don't necessarily get. But we need toys for all ages of kids, from infants on up to teenagers. We like to have new unwrapped toys. That way we can determine what the age appropriateness is and sort them on that basis. In terms of the food, we look for any non-perishable item, basics, staples, canned foods, pastas, powdered potatoes, any of those kinds of things are always great to have. People can use them all year round. Soups, pasta sauces, whatever anyone feels like giving. We put a nice bag of food, or sometimes a box of food together, depending on how much we have. We also do food vouchers, which are the coupons from Safeway, which we purchase and then include as well in the baskets.
That's good, because they can use those later on.
For the perishable items.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And those we purchase, as I said, so we need monetary donations in order to do that.
And for monetary donations, they would contact you directly?
They can contact me directly. They can contact Truckee Community Christmas. There's a P.O. box, which we'll scroll at the end of the show, and just mail them directly there.
Okay, so again, keep your eyes open for those names, telephone numbers, and dates and places to contact people. Now, you mentioned dropping off unwrapped toys, and I know that's important so that you can make them age-specific or even gender-specific, so that you can send them to the right people. But Patty, one of the things that you then have to do is have a big wrapping day.
Yes, we do. Seroptimus organizes that. This year it will be at the high school. It will be Friday, December 18th from, I think, 3 to 7.
Right.
And then Saturday, the 19th of December, starting at 8 a.m. until they're completed.
Till they're all wrapped.
And what they start out doing is, the first thing they do is they sort everything by age and by gender. Then it's a very elaborate process where they figure out, they match the number of toys to the children in the different ages by family. So basically they're sorted, they're wrapped, and then they're matched up in these large bags.
That sounds like a tremendous effort.
It's a huge effort.
But the wrapping day is supposed to be a lot of fun, and I have to admit that I have not done that yet.
It is a lot of fun. People are definitely in the community, or in the Christmas spirit by then, certainly in the community spirit if they have managed to come to that event. We've had families come where they bring their children to assist. It helps if you bring your own scissors and tape. If you have wrapping paper, that's another item that we tend to run short on, and it saves Seroptimus from having to go out and purchase wrapping paper.
that. Sure.
So if you have ends of rolls that you don't want to use anymore, we would gladly take those, drop it in the food barrel, or sorry, the toy barrels, or the food barrels.
Or the food barrel. we know how to segregate toys from food.
Yeah, and we will
far.
make use of all of those types of items.
Well, Patty, you're just doing a tremendous job out there.
Well, it's not me, it's the whole group, but thank you very much. We're very pleased with the number of families we've been able to reach.
How many do you think that will be?
Last year, we were able to reach a total of over 200 households.
Yeah.
We had 50 adopt-a families through Safeway. We had about 140 families, and then we had a huge group of seniors that we were able to reach.
Oh, that's great.
This year, we're hoping to do the same or better.
That's super. Well,
Depends
Patty,
on our community needs.
That's great. That's great. As always, the Truckee community pitching in, making it a better holiday season. We'll be mentioning all of the different organizations that your umbrella organization is covering, so again, watch at the end of the show for that. And Patty, thank you for being on the show again. It's great to have you back.
It's my pleasure.
Great. We'll be back in just a second. It's a special time of year, a time to share with your families and people that you care about. Unfortunately, it's also a hard time for families who are already struggling. So please pitch in, contact the organizations you're about to see on your screen, and let's make this a special season of sharing for everybody in the Truckee community. And on behalf of the students, staff, and the volunteer here at Truckee High School, we'd like to say Happy Holidays!
agency that the town is forming. I feel that it gives the town too much power being able to take property by eminent domain. I realize that we need more parking and public restrooms downtown, but is it worth taking property tax dollars away from the schools and other special districts to fund this? I think if the town quit doing studies that it could probably afford to do some of the downtown projects that redevelopment is supposed to do. If redevelopment occurs and low interest loans are made, who's going to make sure that big developers with matching monies aren't going to get it all? If some of the town's employees' job descriptions are rewritten to help people instead of to enforce rules, I believe that we wouldn't need a redevelopment agency. I believe all my opponents have the best interests of the town at heart, but sometimes it takes a new voice to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving down line to Don McCormick.
Good evening. My message to you for this election is that experience is the difference. And I would ask you to keep this in mind when you discuss the candidates with your friends and on Election Day next Tuesday when you vote. By any objective measure, the town has been successful since its incorporation just a few years ago. Our financial condition, our successful planning activities, our road improvement program, the development of our staff and the administrative procedures, our communication outreach activity, among many others, all attest to a very high-quality effort by this town council. No single person can claim credit for this, for it does represent a cooperative team effort, a team of a very highly qualified professional town staff and a policy-setting town council working together. And I am proud to have been an active contributing participant in this effort, and with this record, I ask for your support for 4 more years to serve you. The road ahead is going to include many challenges. Major activities include land use decisions to implement our general plan and our downtown specific plan, completing the formation of a redevelopment agency and putting it into place and active, revising our development code, plus numerous more day-to-day activities and decisions. I have learned much about town government, its various roles, its procedures, its mechanisms for making decisions, and my experience can be a significant benefit to the town for the next 4 years. I'm an engineer by training, but primarily a professional businessman and professional senior manager. I bring much to the table. I have nearly 40 years of management experience with a major corporation, providing a wealth of background in all aspects of running a major business. And do not be mistaken, town government is a business. The bottom line is not profit, it is service, but it runs like a business. There are those exceptions. In addition to 4 years on the council, I have lived in Truckee for 9 or 10 years. I have been a member of the Tahoe Donner Board of Directors and president of that board. I have been a member of the board of the Truckee Donner Land Trust and a president of that board. I believe that my greatest contribution to the council has been my emphasis and leadership in relationships and decision-making processes. I do my homework and am prepared. I always study the issues and listen to all views and then decide objectively on what is best for Truckee, all of Truckee. Lastly, I would like to comment on a very divisive issue that is still present, and that is PC2 and some of my views. The formal review of PC2 is just about to begin. We've had a very public process of determining first how to deal with planned communities, what process to use, and then for PC2, a public input, several sessions in order to gain the public's input to the issues. I have concern about a number of these issues, particularly the where to locate the commercial center, the size of the total amount of commercial activity, and the amount of open space to be preserved in the residential part of the community. These are tough decisions. Experience will make a difference.
Thank you, Don. Can we have some questions from the audience, please? Go ahead and start a line at the podium.
Yes, my name is Paul Klein, and my problem with the various development proposals in this town is not retail leakage, which some of you may know the definitions of those, but we're really dealing with retail hemorrhaging in the town of Truckee. We don't have a decent selection for buying stereos or TVs or furniture or cars, and all that money is going to Reno and Roseville, and I'd like to know what incentives you're going to give to PC2 and these people that are suing us and anyone else who's got vacant land who wants to develop, to make sure that we have products that the citizens of Truckee would like to buy here rather than drive to Roseville or Reno. And I'd like all four of you to answer those questions.
Let's go ahead and start back down with Don.
There are a lot of questions there. The issue of providing everything that Truckee might like to buy in Truckee is a complicated one. This community does not want a Kmart, Walmart kind of store. It's been very outspoken, and the town council and the general plan have addressed that with a limit of 40,000 square feet on any single occupant. If Kmart would like to build a 40,000 square foot store, they would be welcome. But the community has not wanted to have the kind of development that goes with providing 18 lines of refrigerators in one place. I'm dedicated to preserving that. We have to deal with PC2 in a manner to avoid lawsuits. I think we can do that.
Thank you. Ed?
I think the town in the past have gotten rid of commercial and industrial properties that, they're forcing people to move to Reno, and there are lots of big companies that paying lots of tax dollars here at one time that have moved to Reno. The PC2, I believe it would have been better off for a lot of small developers to put in smaller stores. I don't really see the need for the big stores. The big stores still need to stay in Reno, I believe.
Maya?
There are some that would argue that Truckee is geographically located to be the regional commercial center for the Northern Sierras. I think that the community has made pretty clear that that's not the direction they want our town to go, and it behooves us to listen to that direction from the community. However, providing services in this town is critical. Edgar hit on one important point, which is industrial uses and where do we place them in this town without running them out, and the other is commercial uses. I believe there's a balance to be struck there between serving the needs of our citizens while maintaining the flavor of our town.
Thank you. Bob?
That's why I commented on local serving commercial. I agree with you. The others are all correct. That's what the town has said. But if we do, in fact, double or triple, you're going to need more beauty shops, more laundries, more whatever. And I think there's got to be provision for that. Our general plan also, seldom it's talked about, talks about having regional commercial centers for locals, rather than jamming it all in one spot, and that's for a number of reasons, including traffic. I understand the will of the community, but I would certainly like to see expansion of local serving commercial wherever possible for the very things you address, sir.
Thank you. Next question.
I'm a Donner Lake resident, and I'd like to know from the board that wants to be elected, what are you going to do to ensure our safety should the fireworks event be put back on the issue again this coming year?
We're going to go back down the line from Bob here.
Well, many of you know I was out there the night of that event, and it frightened me. We have become, that event has become what has happened to other towns, a smaller scale, but numerous towns where these young people take it over. My personal view is that you cannot guarantee your safety out there. The liquor, I've seen stuff in the paper about, well, we won't sell it on the beach and so on. That's not the real problem. The problem is in the homes out there. The business about shutting off and driving buses, that's impractical, and even then, there's still, the liquor is in those homes. If we do an event, the only thing that we can do, assuming the police can do it, the sheriff can do it, is a very, very aggressive police action, as much as the law allows. We've got a lot of problems with cite and release and those kinds of issues now with juveniles, where you can't just take them in. They've got to be treated differently. It's a tremendous problem due to our geographic isolation from any other place. Personally, my personal view is I'd like to see it not go on for a year. Do a hiatus and do aggressive police action on the 4th, because they'll come anyway, whether there's an event or not, and then try to work to something after a year goes by to give it a dead time.
Maya?
Thank you. As you may know, I was involved with 4th of July committee meetings that were initiated a couple of months ago to address this issue. And I actually see Charlie back here. Charlie is now the chair of those meetings. They are looking very, very clearly and strongly at those issues. And at every committee meeting, we have a representative from both the fire and the sheriff's department. There will be no way that the sheriff's department or the fire department especially will issue a permit to hold the event unless those safety issues are addressed. So they are moving forward with compromises, ideas, plans to have some sort of 4th of July event, if not this year, perhaps the following year. But keeping in mind the safety of not only the citizens and the visitors, but also our public safety officials who are out there trying to keep these crowds in control.
Yeah, because my specific concern is really medical emergency access, and there was none.
Yeah, and that's also the concern of both the fire department and the sheriff's department, as well as of the 4th of July committee.
Edgar, would you like to?
I don't really have an answer as to what to do to make it safe for the public. You know, and you're in a motor vehicle and there's always a chance of having a problem. And when you're drunk, there's even more of a chance of having problems. I don't know how to control that or how to contain it. If somebody has an answer, they could tell me.
Don, go ahead.
I'm very happy with the approach that we're taking, and Maya's participation in this gives me great confidence. It's an example of how this town council addresses significant problems. It is a problem of how to the problem is not just having the fireworks and having it safely, but providing what this community wants. A lot of this community want to have a 4th of July celebration, and it can only happen if it can be done in a safe manner. And I think Bob's spoken to what has to be done to make that happen. I think we got off on the wrong foot. People got the impression that a unilateral decision was made. It was made in the closet. It's never going to happen again. That is, fireworks are over. I think that was an unfortunate misconception of what was taking place. What was taking place was that the fire chief and the police captain, the chief of police, correctly said that we cannot have the fireworks display if we cannot do it safely. And I think we're on our way to finding a way to do it, and if we can do it, we'll have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
Thank you all for coming. Charlie White from Donner Lake again. Little plug for our 4th of July committee. It was meeting on November 2nd, Monday night, at the upstairs of the fire district room in their gateway station. If you'd come, we're always open. It starts at 5 o'clock.
That was November 2nd.
It's been November 2nd, Monday, you know.
Would you like to advertise some houses, Charlie? Or?
No, I'm going to get to that.
Anyway, again, thank you for coming. I do have a question. Truckee is currently finalizing the town development code. There is a portion of that code, there are portions, in plural, which some people feel result in the taking of private property rights. What are your thoughts regarding this allegation, and how do you feel this issue should be handled, each of you? Thank you.
Maya, you look the most interested. Go.
Boy, and I was trying to keep a straight face on that one. Thanks, Peter. Charlie, that's a critical issue. That's come up not only in redevelopment, but also, as you say, in the development code. There isn't anything that we're going to be doing that's going to be, in my mind anyway, a taking, and we have to be very, very careful with the development code. I was fortunate to meet with one of the planning commissioners today, my appointment, Don Estabrook, and we talked a bit about the development code and how those meetings were going. At this point, the planning commission is still struggling with a lot of the concepts and the issues that are in the development code, and it has not come back to the town council for any sort of final approval. But we do have to approach each one with caution, and there are variations on a theme in the development code as far as what somebody might consider a taking. If certain properties are grandfathered in and allowed to remain with that use, but a burn down paper isn't offered, for instance, I know that's been discussed a few times, that could be economically harmful, and we don't want to do that to people. So we have to take a look at each one of those very carefully.
Edgar, why don't you?
The development code, I haven't been involved in a lot of the issues with it. For the most part, it looks to be pretty good, but the takings of property, as I mentioned earlier, for redevelopment and all that worries me. Somebody's got to be a watchdog over what the town staff wants to take and what they want to do. Thank you.
Don?
I've been following the Development Code review by the Planning Commission very carefully, and they're doing a fine job, and they're to be credited for the effort. Everything in the Development Code, and it is a book about 3 inches thick, and it replaces a document that's about 2 feet high, a series of documents. Everything in there could be considered a taking to somebody. And Charlie, I don't know what particular aspect of taking you might be asking about, but the whole issue of land use planning is where the town council, as the ultimate authority, has to decide between what is good to protect the property rights of the individual with what is the compromise between that and the protection of the community as a whole. And there are no pat answers. There are only some guidelines, and you do the best you can to reach the right point. And it's a compromise on every single one.
And Bob?
Well, it is in the process of the Planning Commission now, and hopefully a lot of things will be cleared there or changed, recommended changed. And those who are concerned, Charlie, yourself or others, if it isn't changed and you still have concerns, then it finally comes to the council for approval, and you should bring those concerns there. I mean, the idea is a lot of it will be worked out there. I personally have concerns beyond that. I think the signage is a serious question. The clustering is, I was mistaken on what I thought that was, and I think there's a number of issues that I know they're working through. But I would encourage you or anyone else that if you're not satisfied and don't receive what you consider resolution at the Planning Commission level, then you should come bring it here to the council and on a TV show and raise your concerns and make the council respond to you.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear it's not going to be a rubber stamp.
No, sir.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Dave Brown, resident business owner in Truckee. As you know, in our town, we have a lot of splinter areas. We have, different snow removal in one place and another, or we have different quality of water that comes out of our taps when we turn our water taps on. And we got another potential of that happening with Southwest Gas. And my concern is, what I would ask for each of you is, can each of you commit to not negotiating the point of providing natural gas to the entire town of Truckee? There may be some negotiation needed, but I would ask that, can you commit to not negotiating the point of serving the entire town of Truckee and risking splintering off the haves and have-nots again within the town?
Edgar, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I do believe Southwest Gas needs to provide service to all of the town of Truckee. I think there needs to be some negotiations. I saw what the town of Truckee made Southwest Gas go through in some of their projects, making them do twice as much work as was necessary. But I still think Southwest Gas needs to provide what they agreed to provide in the beginning.
And
Bob?
I understand that's gas to the entire town of Truckee, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Bob, your turn.
Me? Yes. We are in negotiations right now, and the council members here have had a closed session on it, and there's a lawsuit filed, and there's some things we can't talk about, but generally speaking, the negotiations are to try to achieve gas for all. That's the council's intent, I believe. It's mine anyway. But the negotiations are open to negotiation. And all we're doing is agreeing to talk. We're not agreeing to anything other than to sit down and talk. Rather than not talk, let's talk. Because they have the money to fight us forever with money. They've got lawyers, and they can just keep taking us to court. I mean, this business about, okay, we'll start, but now it's October 15th and we can't start. They can do that for a long time. So I'm encouraged that we're at least sitting down to talk, and we, by the way, are including in those negotiations some of the more members of the community that were the original movers in it, and so there will be citizen representation, which is consistently what this council always does, as well as council members.
I understood that as not a commitment. Is that correct, Bob?
I'm committed that we should negotiate that the whole town be covered, and if it's a good deal and the town buys it, yes, but I mean, I'm not going to make an absolute commit. They got to serve, somebody up on the top of the summit or something. Whatever's the best for the most, then I would be for it.
Maya, do you want to step into that one?
I've been a Southwest Gas up to here. When we originally went down to the PUC commissioners to have this dialogue with them and to ask them to hold Southwest Gas's feet to the fire, the critical issue there was getting the entire town served for the original contract price as agreed. As Bob said, we can't really go into detail now, but as we walk into hopefully some open-minded on both sides negotiations with Southwest Gas, a concession I may be willing to take a look at would be in the area of pricing, and I don't know how that would look. I'm reluctant to throw any numbers or figures out there. But one area I really do not want to compromise on is the area of service. And that area of service never really extended to any outlandish areas. It included Donner Lake, it included Prosser Heights, and I think those two areas should still be included and should be served. And to the degree that we can successfully do so, I think that those should not be chips on the table for negotiation.
Thank you, Maya. I appreciate that commitment.
Don?
I think Maya hit it exactly right. You can't go into a negotiation with the intent of absolutely holding their feet to the fire, to the bottom line. You got to provide gas to everybody at the original cost. That's not negotiating. That is the position we took with the PUC to get the favorable ruling. Now we're at the point of trying to find some middle ground, which, from my standpoint, needs to include service to all. And what is to be negotiated might be some rate structure that would provide some additional return to Southwest Gas for the extended service. It's a negotiation. It's wide open.
Thank you for that commitment, Don.
We're letting them off that easy? There are no other questions? Oh, no, here we go.
Thank you for the opportunity to have the candidates tonight. I'm Bob Sutton. I'm part of a family business that's been in Truckee for 33 years. It was good to hear comments tonight about the intent of council members to provide a business climate that will help the local business community to remain and be successful. And I'm going to ask each of the candidates and incumbents to comment on my question. Are you aware that the Union Pacific Railroad at this moment is telling people along East River Street to evacuate their property within 30 days? This is contrary to what we have believed the business plan for the incorporation would be, and some of the businesses are going to have to leave. There's no place for them to go. And I'd like each of you to comment on what your thinking is on this and what the town can do to help this situation so that these local small businesses can remain.
Don, why don't we start with you on that?
Bob, I can answer that question completely, that no, I'm not aware that the Union Pacific is terminating leases along West River Street, East River Street, whichever it was. That has not come before the town council. I don't know that the planning staff is aware of it, and I know nothing about it. We could jawbone a bit with Union Pacific. We've had good relationships with them in the past. Our development of the undercrossing and the roundabout came about from a very productive cooperative effort with the railroad and its senior managers. We have some reputation with them, but I can only say that we need to get the town staff involved.
Edgar, we're going to go down the line here.
Yeah, I believe the whole problem that you're referring to started with the rezoning of the property down there and when it was sold, and now there's talk of building condos down there. I believe that the talk of building condos influenced the railroad to move everybody out of there so the condos will go through and be built. Thanks.
Hiya.
Bob, I did hear about that only within the last few days, and because a person who had property down on East River Street had brought it to the attention of Tony Lashbrook, Tony in turn and I had a brief discussion on it. My understanding is that staff is taking a look at that, are making communications. Part of the issue is that the real estate part or arm of UP has been consolidated back to, I think, Omaha, and it's like California real estate means what? I don't know. And we definitely need to have conversations with UP about that. As regards the zoning and the condominiums, I hadn't heard anything about that. The railroad historically holds the right to retract their land at a minute's notice. It makes it very difficult for people who hold railroad leases. It certainly doesn't make it right, and whatever the town can do to assist people down there, we should be doing.
Bob, you're up.
Like Don, I just heard it this afternoon about 1 o'clock, and at that time I was up in Steve Wright's office, and he was putting in a call to Omaha to try to get some kind of talking going on. I would doubt condos would be built there. It's right next to a railroad track. I certainly wouldn't want to live there, so I would doubt that something's going to be built right there. But I would agree with the other comments that anything we can do to help. I mean, this, like Maya said, it's their property, and as I understand it, what I heard today, they're 30-day leases, and they just said 30 days from now you're off. Legally, that's their right. I can't imagine why they did it. I don't know. The town will do what it can. But.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to cut the questions off at that point and go into the closing statements. And the order I've got here is for Mr. Edgar Stratton to lead off on the closing statements.
I'm not a typical politician. I don't like being the center of attention, but I have to stand up for my beliefs. I hate to complain about things and then not do anything about them. That's why I'm running for town council. I'm standing up for the working people that go to work early, come home late, and don't have time to get involved in town matters, town politics. I haven't taken any campaign contributions from anybody because I don't want to be beholden to anybody, but I will use my best judgment to make the right decisions if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Drake.
I'd like your vote to finish one more term to participate in Truckee's continuing involvement as a locally controlled government. I want to see positive steps to allow for responsible growth to accommodate our needs, as I mentioned. We must have housing for varying income levels, including more affordable housing units. Provision must be made for the enhancement of tourist business and, as we discussed, more local serving commercial. And I pledge to work on the historic preservation in our downtown core. Perhaps there's a few more eagles out there I can find. I'm particularly interested in starting some type of a railroad facility to honor and display that element of our past. I think that the 5 years I've provided a clear-speaking, fiscally conservative, middle-of-the-road figure on the council, and I ask for your vote a week from today. No matter who you vote for, as others have said before me, be sure you vote. While it's our right, it is your duty. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Don McCormick.
I will be brief in closing. Truckee is at a major turning point in its development. We are going from a new city status to a maturing one, and which is experiencing significant growth pressures. These pressures result from the wonderful community in which we live in, as well as the very significant growth that's occurring in California. The challenges that the town council will face require proven abilities, proven experiences, demonstrated interest, and demonstrated leadership. I believe that I have demonstrated all of these qualities, and I ask for one of your 3 votes on Tuesday.
Thank you. And Maya Schneider, you have the last word.
Oh, that's a rare opportunity. I am asking for your vote on November 3rd, and I'm asking for your vote so that I can continue in the work that we've already been doing and set forth in just the brief time I've served on the town council. It's been an honor for me, but more than that, I really hope that I've offered another voice, another avenue for the people of Truckee to come forward to the council to be able to voice their opinions and concerns. As a working member of our community, I believe I'm in touch with what it's like to be holding down a job and trying to make it in our town. But I'm also somebody who enjoys our environment and need to retain and keep that balance and understand what economic growth means in terms of the demands of the growth and the needs of that growth for our community. I appreciate your coming tonight. I appreciate your listening on TV. I'd like to thank and wish the best of luck to my peers and to Edgar. And I hope that each one of you goes to the polls next Tuesday and casts your vote. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That will wrap up our candidate forum for 1998. I do wish to thank Westar Channel 6 for bringing this live, and I believe it'll be aired a couple more times before the election. I want to thank all the candidates for taking their time, all the people in the audience for coming and asking the questions that needed to be asked, and of course the most important aspect here is to exercise that constitutional right and get out and vote on November 3rd and make your voice heard. Thank you very much and good night.
Nice job. Don't sweat.
White. And I'm spacing these in here at roughly 5 bulbs per square foot. I'm loosening the soil a little bit as I plant them. It's important not to shove them down into the soil. Then you compact the soil beneath the roots, and it makes the roots, gives the roots a little harder time growing. I think I'll just go with one variety. The tulips are also recommended at the same depth. And over in one corner, I'm going to put a few tulips. Now I think I'll plant a couple of tulips in here since they go at the same depth. I would normally plant many more than I'm planting here. More is better. And now since these other smaller bulbs are planted at a shallower depth, I'm going to backfill in a little bit around these bulbs to get to the soil, to bring the hole's depth